I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guests, the cast and director of ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter, to the show, and I'll have them introduce themselves to you.
Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Taylor. Oh, that's not true. That's a lie. I've already stopped lying, Kevin. I am Kathy Najimy, and I am talking to you from New York City, best city in the world.
Hi, Kevin Pollak here, Motion Pictures, the Internet. I am so happy to be here, and I don't know what else I'm supposed to say at this point.
Say, I'm your favorite.
Oh, right. Kathy Najimy is the reason I said yes to this project.
Oh, that's so nice, even though it's a lie. Go ahead.
Hello, Jerry Rees here, frequent visitor to Tammy's wonderful talk show.
Welcome back, Jerry. Welcome, Kathy and Kevin. It's so nice. We got this together. I'm so glad you guys all joined in for some fun, because Alien Encounter has like this huge fan base, which I'm not surprised it does. But kind of the history behind it is it's a very, very dark attraction for Magic Kingdom. So I wanted to hear, first off, Kathy and Kevin, how did you guys jump in or hear about this project originally before maybe auditioning or being selected by Jerry and the crew?
Kathy, you go first, but I can't imagine auditioning for this. Go ahead.
How well do you wear green paint?
I concur. I got a call. I have a huge history with Disney. It wasn't on purpose, but it just was kismet that I would say over half of the project I've done have been Disney. So I got a call, I believe it might have been from Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of those heads of state, and said, do you want to be a ride at Disney? And I said, are you freaking kidding me? You know, when I was growing up, our family didn't have a lot of dough. So the only vacations we ever took were ones we could all hop in the Buick and go and drive to. And it was Disney. So anyway, to be a ride at Disney World was an absolute yes from me.
My turn. I got a call just from a regular agent who represented me. And I had no history with Disney other than being a lifelong fan and annual pass holder now forever. Until they just discontinued it. We'll talk about that for 6 hours if you're willing. My agent called and said, you've been invited to join this project that's a new attraction at Disney World. And I think also before he finished the sentence, I was nodding yes, which didn't work that well on a phone. So I eventually said yes.
Jerry, did you choose us? Were you part of that?
Yes, absolutely. And I had a wonderful casting director, Ronnie Eskel, who she cast Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and on and on and on. And she had been my casting director several times, and I just adored her and trusted her to gather the best suspects. And she knew that I really wanted to get something that had staying power, because these things, while they're sort of short in duration, you go in and it's much shorter than a feature. Typically, I mean, we've directed 22 shows for the parks now, and most of them have a run of well over a decade, typically about 15 years. And so you want to have something where people not only can have the first blush of having the experience, but want to come back again and again and tell their friends. And the 15th time they see it, they have a great time. And so casting it well is key. And so Ronnie was my best ally in collecting you two.
And Kathy and Kevin, had you guys worked together prior to the attraction?
I feel like Pepper, I call him Pepper. Pepper, had we worked before? I certainly knew we were good friends because there was a gaggle of us in Los Angeles who were and still are, although I'm in New York, game night people, like sycophant game players. So I know that we had a solid relationship from gaming, but had we been in anything together, Kevin?
Sadly, no, we had not, and haven't since.
That's because I refused.
Was always my assumption. So thank you for confirming that.
You're welcome.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a sin that you guys haven't done that again.
Yes, but we had known each we had known each other very well socially, so that was a delight.
Yes.
And Jerry, how did you explain the premise? Because again, this is a very it was a very dark project that Michael Eisner was fully behind to add to the new Tomorrowland.
Well, it's scary as hell, but hilarious. And I cast everyone who had comedic chops. So, it was Kathy and Kevin, and then Jeffrey Jones and Tim Curry. I had Phil Hartman was in a draft of it. Jim Jackman, who was a Groundlings improv guy, I had used as a voice for the Brave Little Toaster. He plays the guy that gets eaten. So, everything was about giving a fun smile to the scare. And it was really, all of us discussed it at Disney. It was a throwback to the Tingler in the late 50s, where they would rig theaters with things that would shock the audience members. And they would promise that you would feel the shock, and you'd come into the theater and they showed audience members screaming their heads off. And we thought, well, that's what it's about. It's not actually dramatic scare. It's really, let's have fun, all being playfully terrified together. And so it was important to me to have the comedic chemistry. And boy, Kathy and Kevin, you guys had such wonderful comedic chemistry together in the scenes that were there. And we also shot additional stuff with you to cover additional situations that might arise. And just every time, the tension between the Dr. Femus, Kathy, you're playing this character who's the scientist that knows how this teleportation technology works. And you know that things are not quite ready for today. And Kevin, you were Spinlock, who's the right-hand man to the chairman, who is determined that you're going to show off your wares for excess tech in this convention center, and you're going to sell something today. So the pressure's on, and you're like bulldozer will to make sure that this keeps going and is on target and doesn't have even a pause. And Kathy's wariness about everything's going to go wrong, and then it goes the most horribly wrong you could possibly imagine. Just that, and then when it does go wrong, Kevin, you feeling guilty about it, and her "I told you so" stuff, all those layers, which you're trying to sort of keep under wraps because it's supposed to be live. It was hilarious. It was great to see you be aware of the audience in a live broadcast and try to have your fights without letting them see. So it was great. And it was all about celebrating. It's fun to be scared together, knowing that it's safe and you're going to go out shrieking. We began to hear, this was after the version I installed. It went through sort of a earlier period that I did not see. But once I went and tuned everything in the park and opened the version that I verified, that I condoned, it played super gangbusters, adrenaline pumped, and we began to get senior citizens approaching people that worked in the park to specifically tell them how much they liked the show. And that came back to my main producer for that draft of the show, Rick Rothschild, and I, and he shared that with me. He said, for some reason, the employees at Disney, they keep getting approached by senior citizens who say, I really loved Alien Encounter. And all we could figure was that it gave them and if you go and listen to people's home videos of it, I did a link on our text chain to one of those home videos. People, you just hear people screaming. It sounds like a roller coaster going over the highest peaks and dropping out from under them. It's just full out shrieks. And yet it doesn't not rock you around. You're in an absolutely stationary seat, and you're locked down as if we have shoulder things holding you down, as if you were in a roller coaster, because we didn't want people to go running around the theater once the alien was breathing down their necks. So it was really to hold you in place for safety. But you're strapped in and you don't move. So I think the senior citizens were like, great, you didn't give me whiplash. You didn't do anything that physically taxed me at all, but you gave me a thrill. And for some reason, enough for them to notice, as a demographic group came up and said, thanks for the thrills.
But it's true that it was shut down because it was simply too scary?
I think this was the expectation. If we had opened, and I just recently was involved with the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout thing, which is equally just, it's adrenaline pumping scares. But that, Tower of Terror and Sounds Dangerous and different things like that, which are just as scary, are playing not in the Magic Kingdom. They're playing at Disney MGM Studios and then the California Adventure Park and stuff. I think the expectation in the Magic Kingdom where this played was that you can just let your kids run and everything is G-rated. Everything is safe. And so families can kind of split up and you can run around and know that you're in a 100% safe zone. And this was not intended for little kids. It wasn't. And people know that. They don't take babies on Tower of Terror. They don't. They know, like, okay, this is a thrill ride. It's a roller coaster. You know, kids don't go on this. And we had the same age warning on this, but people ignored it. They're like, oh, we're in the Magic Kingdom. Go ahead, kids, go in there. You're like,
yeah.
This is meant for a more adult audience. So I think if the same exact show that you guys helped us create was in Disney MGM Studios next to Tower of Terror, it would still be running.
And they had said that they had put additional signs, like even after it officially opened, they put even more signs and asked the cast members to let families know this is not for kids. But still people would go in and then complain afterwards. So, you know, what are they going to do?
You know, kudos to you for, I just realized casting a woman as the head scientist. I think that was really for this. Yeah, thank you for that.
I grew up with a very smart mom, and so my model of what women are and should be in society has always been very high. And by the way, the screams and in a moment I want to get back to how much time you guys spend in makeup and how you survived acting under all the foam. But I was just going to say last thing about the screams. Did we though? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the screams.
Worst practical joke ever.
Ever.
Well, why don't we shift to that right away? I recall 4.5 hours of makeup for you guys in the morning.
A little more. I actually had never had any sort of panic attack in my life at that time. And how many years ago was that? So if I'm 62,
was that 94? 1994.
About 27?
Okay.
May 2.
Okay, yes. Okay. So I was in my 30s and I had worked in prosthetics a lot, but enough. Mm-hmm. And I remember when they were putting cement stuff on my face. What's the real name for it? The stuff they put to make the mold of your head.
Oh, the mold. Yeah. Yes, I know what you mean.
Yes, that word that we can't remember. And they were putting
something
it on.
Something like plaster of Paris, and definitely not Jerry Paris. Yeah.
Plaster of Paris. And they put it on my face and they covered my eyes and I was okay. And then they put 2 straws up my nostrils and then they covered my mouth. And I thought, oh, something's not wrong in the country of my body. I just started having shakes and chills. My mind started going on LSD and I had never done LSD. And I was freaking out. And so I waved my hands in front of my face like, And they go, oh, you need a break? I said, And they said, oh, do you need some water? So, do you want us to take it off? The whole taken them at least an hour to get those strips on my face to make that mold. Yeah. And I feel so bad. It was the first time I realized that I had what's the name of the thing? Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia.
And
I can relate. I went through that. I did one of those just to know exactly what everyone's going through. I did the full 45 minutes to an hour of being under there, so I relate. Straws.
It was crazy. They had the whole thing off, and they said, "What do you need?" And I said, "A Diet Coke." They gave me a Diet Coke. I walked around the building once and came back, took a deep breath, and they did it again. From that moment on, I became a claustrophobic person. But I don't know what came first. Maybe I was claustrophobic before the cement on my face. Right, that's it.
I didn't realize we had such diverse reactions because I've insisted on having the 4.5 hour process once a month for skin cleansing, which I highly recommend. I can't get enough. Yeah, no, I swore. Should we get to the practical joke, which was the worst, therefore best that's ever been done to me?
Sure.
So along the lines, so folks understand, this 4.5 hour of prosthetics, and then it's probably another hour and a half to get it off at the end of the day. At the end of the first day, I said, not only will I never do this again for any other job, I'm not sure I can come back for day 2. It was the opposite of fun and not at all why I got into the business of show. And I thought, nothing is worth this, not even being in a Disney ride for the rest of time, which is the fantasy, right? And then I believe, is that when you came in? It was at the end of day one you came in? No, it was the end of day two, you said. You said day one was no, we can't use it. You'll have to come back for a third day. Just when I thought it was over. I think that's how it went down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was only 2 days, wasn't it?
Yeah,
No,
I
it was
think
three. Wasn't it 3?
I think we had various needs May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Like it all happened inside of one calendar week, but I was switching people out different days. So I'm not. I actually have the call sheets here. I have my director's notebook, but I know for sure it started on May 2nd and went for several days at Raleigh Studios. But yes, the practical joke.
The practical joke only worked because you did it and not Kathy. If Kathy had said it, of course, it would have never worked. But because you were and continue clearly to be the most earnest, wonderful human being that ever lived, yeah, you got me hook, line, and sinker.
Did I play it well?
Well, I'm not going to just insist it was the best performance you'll ever give, but it had to have been.
Well, I felt so empathetic to you guys that you were under all of that, and the worst thing I could imagine, well, I could imagine worse, but a terrible thing is having your hearing impeded while you're trying to perform. It's just the worst feeling, and I was sure that underneath that foam your ears were rather blocked. And
I think you've touched on it, and I blocked the memory. But as I told people about it later, because I went through a similar prosthetics 100 years later when I did the whole 10 yards, which doesn't quite work as a film, but some of the most fun I've ever had acting in my life was playing this 80-year-old Hungarian mobster, which also took 4 hours of makeup in the morning and an hour and a half at night. But it covering the ears, when I described it to people later, for I'm going to guess a minimum of 10 years before I stopped pulling strangers aside on the sidewalk. Do you understand what I went through? I would yell at them. It was covering the ears and not being and living inside of that echo chamber. That was by far the most disconcerting style experience of acting I have and will ever go through, for sure.
I was amazed how well you guys focused through that and just really played the moment and played it with zest and with great rapport between the two of you. But I could see the hardship you were going through.
You didn't get to the practical joke. You never told it to the people.
Well, I was saying he came in and said, you have to come back tomorrow, just when we were wrapping out, whether it was 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was.
Right.
But Kathy and I were done, and it was the end of the day. We were done. And I can't describe. That was the most thrilling part of the entire experience. That we were done, and I would never have to go through this again. As fun as it was, exciting as it was, as truly excited as I was to be a part of an attraction at Disney World, this was the most thrilling part, that it was done. And then our director, who is the most trustworthy human being that I'd ever met, came in with the saddest eyes and said, I'm just horrified and humiliated and embarrassed, and that I have to tell you guys, day one is completely lost and ruined, and we have to come back and shoot a full day again. Reshoot day one. And I don't know if I got up out of the chair and started kicking things. I mean, did I admit it before you started strangling me? Oh, I didn't strangle you, but I definitely remember hitting inanimate objects.
And you hit me as well.
I did not hit a person. I absolutely lost my mind, and I wasn't kidding. And I wasn't holding back either. I had an absolute psychotic break.
You did, and then you did a slow burn. You looked at him and thought, well, that kind, honest person couldn't possibly have done this trick. And then you did a slow burn where you turned your head. I think it took 5 full minutes to my makeup chair, and you looked and you said, Najimy. And I laughed so hard. But I remember that, Jerry, you came in and said, we have to reshoot today, get your makeup back on.
I forget exactly which twist I used, but it was since I knew that you were going to be let down from, like the relief I assumed would be tremendous after you found out it was a joke, that I forget which ruse I used, but I figured the good news after the horrible news would give you extra pleasure. But I'm sorry for any lasting scars.
No,
listen,
for accommodating my practical joke. I think
I had blackout rage. I couldn't possibly remember whether it was that day's work or the day before, but maybe I'm doing a rewrite in my mind, because if I may, it is more painful to have to redo a full day's work that you've already completed and is behind you.
Kathy, were you part of brainstorming that particular joke?
I was it. I came to you. Remember?
That's right. That's right. We're the one that put me. Yeah.
No, you're the nice one. I came to you and I said, we're good friends, and he has a great sense of humor, but he just almost finished his last bit of green off his face. Could you walk in and say, we just saw a glitch in the film. I'm so sorry, you guys. Can we get you back into hair and makeup?
That's right. That's right. It was you. That's right.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Jerry. You may have done a rewrite in your mind over the years in telling the story of your version.
And he's never forgiven me to this day. There's a love. There's about a 90% love. We're socially friends. We play games together.
Yep.
I love his mate. But there's also a part of his eyes that are still yellow on fire when he.
Well, there's a lifelong love, and it is only 90% true. That is right. That is correct. And the yellow in my eyes is still left over from the prosthetics. But
Did you get to keep any of the prosthetics at all, or anything from the set?
I wouldn't have if it were offered.
I think it melts quickly, the foam.
Yeah.
There was a bowl of Reese's peanut butter cups that I put in my purse.
Yeah, and now should we tell the story of the wrap gift that I may or may not have got, but went on an auction recently and bought. Kathy, did you get this like crazy beautiful paperweight?
I don't remember. Maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't remember either. It might have been a crew wrap gift. I don't know. I think they felt they'd given us enough money and thought, why bother?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed, and Jerry actually has the ultimate version, because apparently it came with some claw thing that holds it in place.
Yes, the alien claw.
Yeah.
I want one, and then of course I'll sign it and sell it on eBay.
Well, of course.
Well, it's the yes, from the lucite cylinder, and it has a dark base, and then it transitions into a transparent top half, and from the side and the clear part, if you look in, it looks just like sparkling bits that are just look sort of magical. And as you rotate it around to look directly down the length of the cylinder, they form the words Alien Encounter. And the one that they had given me as we wrapped the show finally was held in an alien's claw on a stand. So it actually sits being held by the claw all the time.
It was so cool to see also the behind the scenes bloopers. That's actually how we got in touch. Somebody had tweeted it, and I just retweeted it and tagged you both, Kevin and Kathy and Jerry, and you guys had seen it. And it was so interesting because these were takes where the camera was still rolling. Like Jerry's like, okay, go again. And then there's like, explosions happening in the background. Just really cool how it was all being, filmed.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because at the beginning it has the takes without any music or sound effects added or visual effects. It's just the raw dailies. And then the second section, as I recall, has the visual effects added. So you see more like what it looked like in the final version. And then I think it's the third version that has like the bloopers and you hear my voice off stage going, let's reset, go again. And it's really fun, and there's not it's cool. We didn't do a lot of retakes. There's just a few blooper things that are quite fun. And
but clearly Kathy and I were so exceptional in our work that although Jerry's directed 25 additional attractions, we've not been invited back.
And ours was shut down.
Yeah, which I'm still convinced Jerry had a hand in. He just stepped in one day and said, "It's the one I'm not terribly proud of. Could we?"
You know what? Just so you guys know, Tammy was talking about the fan base, and I've been really surprised that there was a whole new wave of fans of young people. And I met actually when I was a couple of years ago in back at Imagineering once again 1,000 times. One of the young people I was working with in her probably late 20s was one of the kids that went on it when they weren't supposed to, and survived and loved it and had great memories of it. And there's this whole group, including this kid, wonderful guy, a kid from Arizona. I say kid, I know he's probably 18 or 19 now, but he's got in touch several years ago, Caleb Cruzado, and he is in Arizona, and he's making scale model sets of Alien Encounter, and he's collecting every bit of audio and video he can get from people's home movies and creating a multi-channel mix and everything. And there's tons of people that age that are just approaching and past 20, so it's late teens into late 20s, who are just totally obsessed with this show, and they find every video they can get their hands on, and they're replicating stuff and recutting things, and it's become this whole thing.
Listen, before we go any further, I should probably confess that I only agreed to do this because I wanted to pitch the idea that, Jerry, you build a touring set and Kathy and I tour with the attraction around the world, because I think people would line up around the block to face their own fears. All over the world, if given the opportunity.
What about a reboot? I think people are less sensitive now because they're so scared to death from everything, including just their Netflix channel. I think it would be so fun. Come on. It's
funny. There's this whole, wave of support for something like that from kids and young people.
I also want to say that one of the most embarrassing aspects of looking at this footage and still photographs all these years later, 27 years, you said, 1994, is that I in full makeup, there's a shot of us gathered around Jerry.
Yes.
And myself in that photo, I am more handsome in that photo than in real life. in full makeup and with a green gherkin head.
Earlier drafts, which I found in my director's notebook, actually the writer had called you, Kevin, Spittlewort, and Kathy, you were Dr. Morthos.
Wow.
And I had, just on a whim, I was going through some director's notes, rewrite things, and I just went, wow, I remember having a combination lock for my bike, and you'd spin this kind of cylindrical thing. I went, Spinlock, that's kind of a funny name. And then I was thinking of just funny sounding words, and I went, well, the femur bone is kind of funny. Femus is kind of... So I just jotted those in the margins, and you were saved from Spittlewort and Morthos. And there's Kevin trying on his costume early on.
Hello.
Polaroid I showed.
Did we talk about the rest of the cast? We talked about that the host person that talked to them as they were standing in line that welcomed them was Tyra Banks, right?
Yes, and it was just before. Well, she played the alien spokesmodel to talk about the wonders of excess technology.
And what did Tim Curry do? I saw his name.
Tim Curry was the robot that did the demo. So first you saw the promo video with Tyra hosting, and then Chairman Clinch saying his piece, and then you walked into the next room, and now instead of video, you're seeing physical things. So there's a audio animatronic robot that was very cool. His name was Sir, Simulated Intelligence Robotics, and he had this little animatronic creature named Skippy, voiced by Danny Mann, and he would actually do a demonstration of teleportation right in front of your eyes, and use some very cool illusions to make it look like there's two tubes, and he's enveloped in sort of the green vapor and disappears from one, is reconstituted in the other. But as he's reconstituted, he's singed and smoking and complaining. And Tim Curry played the pitch robot. So he was, I told him to think of himself as like a evangelical preacher of technology. And he just really ate it up, went to town.
I'm wondering if the Disney Archives has anything else behind the scenes, even the molds of your faces. Because I wonder if they've been keeping a lot of weird items in their buildings. So I'm wondering if they have anything now.
I've got some Polaroids of the the clay being added to the heads, where I was asked to look at different cranial shapes to make choices. And I was going to say about Tyra. It was really fun. I had a storyboard artist I had worked with before, actually from way back on The Brave Little Toaster. He was animator with me, Steve Moore, and he worked with me on the Robin Williams piece for the park as well, doing animation. And he came up, he was doing some storyboards for me, and he came up with the moment that Tyra Banks turns from looking straight on at you to the profile, and you see for the first time that cranium, the arch of the alien cranium, which is a really fun reveal. But it was cool that he in his sketch showed me the importance of like waiting for that moment to happen. So we did that with Tyra in the promotional video that you see right up front. But a lot of people don't know that it's not her voice. That she was so gifted with everything about presentation, just dynamic as hell. But her voice was like a teenage kid. And so I actually got someone in their late 30s to dub all her tracks to give it more gravitas. And so it's Tyra's wonderful physical presentation and this more mature actress's voice.
Wasn't it Lucille Ball that you got to dub her voice?
See how better your jokes land when your Wi-Fi doesn't interrupt?
Yes, Lucille Ball.
Do you remember the opening? I'm wondering, because originally they would have opening days for certain attractions, and they would invite the cast and sometimes the crew to attend. But did this ever happen? Because I can't find anything if it did.
I think they got word how I had lost my good on the practical joke and decided not to invite me.
This was, I'll just quickly hit the chapter thing, Tammy. That, when we went in 1994 and we filmed together and had a great old time, my impulse, because normally I'm a director that just follows things to the finish line, whatever it is. And I love the crazy transmedia thing of film and props in the room and all kinds of special effects, just everything working together to tell a story. But there was a pretty big group that had built the architecture and prepared things in Florida and everything. And they kind of were, as a big group, just running off to install what I had shot. And we're like, no, thanks, you're done. We don't need you anymore. And I was like, yeah, but the story, and it's huge, and there's 1,000 things that can compete with what you're seeing. And that all has to be choreographed. And they're like, no, we got it covered. And they ran off and installed our footage and did something and opened it. And I didn't even know what it was. And I had warned them. They were like, well, then the room goes dark and they're going to know that the alien is this and that. And they'd explain all the things that the dark would mean. And I said, they might just think somebody kicked a plug and the room went dark. They might think the ride's broken. They might not know that it's a story point. And they're like, no, we got it covered. And they ran off and did a thing. And then I got a call from Michael Eisner and Marty Sklar, who was a wonderful wizard at Imagineering that worked back in the Walt days. And they and Tom Fitzgerald, who was a wonderful executive on it, that three of them just said, Jerry, go to Florida. You got to keep directing this thing. You gotta turn it into a show. It's like it's not a show yet. And so I loved this second chapter, where it's like, as I originally was dying to do, I was just invited to go and live there. And every single thing that happened, it was so fun to fine tune that. And I was given a wonderful producer, Rick Rothschild, who I had worked with before, and he was great. The two of us went through and saw for the first time what had been installed. And it was already open to the public and playing. And Rick and I went through and watched the show one time with what it was. And we sat outside and made notes for about a half hour. And that was it. I mean, it took us 6 months to implement. But everything we decided in that half hour that implemented was the show that finally played. But it was so fun to sit and fine tune it with test audiences. And we had one, Tammy, you were talking about the screaming that happens in the dark when the faux blood falls. That was actually, we learned something from a misfire that happened. We went and invited people into the show, and it was so fun to get test audiences in, because we were working on it during the terrible heat and humidity, and we'd have these people like, yeah, I'll go in and do your test thing, whatever it is. and they would sort of be drooping, and they'd walk into the show, and we were air conditioned, and we were exciting. We get their adrenaline pumping, and we would splash them with water, and there were 2 times. It was the blood and then the bug bits at the end, which was just water. But by the time they left out, they'd been adrenaline pumped and sprayed with water and air conditioned, and they would leave like reconstituted people. They'd be leaping and laughing and talking as they came out. And you'd look at the entrance and the exit, and it was like, this is like a people regenerator. It's amazing. But we were in the dark one time, and our guy got eaten above us. And it was supposed to hit splatter on the whole audience at the same time in the dark. So his helmet cam is snuffed out when he's eaten, and it goes dark, and just a moment later, splat, it hits everyone. It misfired. And Rick and I, my producer, are sitting in the dark with the guests, and it doesn't hit us at all. It just hits the people on the other side of the room, and they scream, which scares the crap out of everybody on our side of the room even more, because it's like, what happened to them? And then it accidentally splatted like several seconds later on us. And then people screamed twice as loud because they were already anticipating something terrible is going to happen. And as soon as the lights came up, Rick and I look at each other and go, okay, that stays in. It's like, it's half of the room and then the other half of the room. So a lot of fun stuff.
This is the saddest part. I never got to see it. Kathy, did you?
Oh, Pepper, I can't believe it. Can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Cutting in and out, but pretty good.
All right, because sometimes I say the most profound, hilarious things and nothing's happening. I went with my husband and my daughter. I think Samia was just a couple years old. And I loved it. I was scared to death, even though I kind of knew what it would be like. I mean, the breathing on my neck with the wet breath of the monster was like better than any sex I'd ever had. It was so great and scary. I really enjoyed it. I really thought it was, and I also thought it was really brave of you guys to put such a scary ride right in Tomorrowland.
And in every single seat, we had a tongue licky thing that would come out and flick on the top of your head. So every single chair in the dark had that moment happen, and people would just go nuts. And then just before the chomp, we would introduce where Dr. Femus comes on and makes noise to attract it away and stuff.
We were discussing off air that they changed it to Stitch when Lilo and Stitch came out and was huge success. So they changed the ride after that time, 2003. And my sister and I were like at a young age where we loved Stitch. So instead of the breathing, it was this horrible burrito burp that Stitch would give you. And we were there for like the first months it was open, and the smell was so disgusting. I can't describe it.
It was Smellorama. I never went to the show that replaced it.
The twist in the story is that Disney liked working with me so much, I actually got to be the voice of the burp, and I can redo it right now.
Please.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yes. Why couldn't your Wi-Fi cut out then?
Oh, the smell.
That
right,
really.
Right. Yeah.
I lived on in both rides. I don't know if people know that I got credit for the burp, but I'm very proud of my work.
And now we know
why. It was beautiful. The sound was beautiful. The smell, no.
Entertainment Association Award.
Well, Stitch is gone now. No more Stitch, and it's an empty theater right now. So,
What kind of show could they put in there? One that's being clamored after by the young ones.
It would be nice to see a reboot.
We don't have to get makeup or cement on our face, because now you could just press the app that puts a flower behind your ear and puts makeup on you.
That's virtually. Right. Digital. Yes, digital makeup is wonderful. Kevin's
like, that's music to my ears.
Yeah, that's the only music I'll hear from this day forward. I'm afraid I've only allotted till 12:30 here. West Coast time.
I know, an hour has gone by quickly. Yes, I just wanted to thank all three of you for being a part of this and for celebrating Alien Encounter, even though it's been gone for 27 years. We miss it. But thank you guys so much for your time today. This was so much fun.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you so much. It really was fun going down scary memory lane.
Yes, thank you. What a pleasure, and I'll always be Pepper.
Pepper.
Kevin and Kathy, thank you so much. It was a joy working with you guys.
Oh, thank you.
The potential of excess technology and all of that. We certainly apologize for any inconvenience, but after all...
It does take time to seize the future.
Good point.